Eyes locked and hearts in tune. You believe in me and I trust in you, my God. Why I gotta leave so soon? Trying to keep it next to you.
Welcome to The Turn, Fantasy Golf Podcast. My name is Andrew Putters, and my buddy Joe Nicely's on the other end. This is going to be an interesting week. We have a lot to catch up on, coming off a holiday. And as you can see, I got my hat on right here. Big weekend, though, we had. Joe, how was your weekend?
It was good, man. It was good. Played in the 4th of July Scramble. There was blood at the brook. It didn't go like last year, but it was really good, man. Had fun. Hung around the house with the family. Had a really good sweat on DraftKings on Sunday. Sunday afternoon didn't go my way, but had a great opportunity there. Had some good lineups. One especially was good. That had Wolf in it and DeChambeau, but didn't go the way I wanted to. But it was a really good weekend, man. Just hot. That's my only complaint. It was hot.
It was hot. I remember last few years, it seems like July 4th it's rained, and this year it was 95 degrees, clear, and pool water was warm. And like you said, I don't know, I've got a lot of childhood memories of growing up at the brook and eating that sausage biscuit with a fountain Coke and muggy temperatures at 8 o'clock in the morning is something I've always remembered as a kid. So I enjoyed doing that with my family, playing in the scramble, and it was just a good time. Golf course is in amazing shape, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the best I've seen it in a couple of years. It's pure right now.
It is good. Yeah, like we did. We hung out with the family all weekend. We went house shopping. Thought but family members were maybe buying a house. We went house shopping. It was just drove back from Florida Friday just so I could make my tee time Saturday morning. I've had a busy couple of weeks, but even though I've been off work, so
Right.
We'll just get right into last week. Rocket Mortgage, Bryson DeChambeau, like we've been saying for the past 4 weeks. It's going to happen. We just didn't know when. Man, we called some long shots last week that were right there.
We did, man. We were pretty on it last week. Of course, we said that we felt like it was coming for Bryson just any time, and it finally came through last week. Unfortunately, it came through when I had an outright on Matthew Wolf, the guy we talked about last week on this show. And I had him in a bunch of lineups. But yeah, he did great. Chris Kirk was a call you made last week that played really well. He popped up. But yeah, the big story was Bryson and what he's doing right now, how far he's hitting the ball, and how he's playing. He led the field in driving, led the field in putting, and when he putts decent, he's going to have a really good chance to win. So last week, leading the field in putting, he finally outrun everybody on Sunday, kind of left them in the dust.
Yeah, that's one thing that has been frustrating me about all this. Where's golf going? What are we going to do? And I'm talking about on like the networks and stuff, and they're just leaving out the part that he has been. He's had 7 top 8 finishes, I guess, in a row. Obviously, he's had like maybe 4 of them have been top 5, and then this win. But they're not really talking about his putting. He is putting, like you said, if he's in the top 25 in putting, he's going to be in the top 5 every tournament, the way he's hitting his driver and is right now.
Yeah, he's I mean, they're maybe selling him a little short on what he's accomplishing right now. He's a really skilled guy, an accomplished college golfer, super skilled in all areas. It's not like he's the long drive guy that just rolled out of bed and was out there hitting it 350. He's a very skilled golfer, and he's worked extremely hard to towards this goal to get his body to do this. It's kind of fun to talk about all the protein shakes and all that, but he's put in a ton of work. It's paying off for him right now. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with going forward, it looks like.
Yeah, and to us, he feels like a fairly new player on tour. I mean, he kind of has that feeling. He's been around a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I heard something the other day that I didn't know. Him and Jordan Spieth are the same age.
Really?
Feels like Jordan Spieth's like 40 years. He's on his way down.
Yeah, it kind of makes you appreciate what Spieth did at such a young age.
Exactly. exactly. And I think Wolf should be a junior in college right now. Is that right? Or going into his senior year? So we have
Yeah,
some of that.
yeah. All those guys, man, they're crazy young. I was looking the other day. I think Neiman's just 21. Sung J M's just 21 or two. Morikawa obviously super young. So I mean, there's a ton of young talent on the PGA Tour.
Absolutely, absolutely. Who else did you? Who else caught your eye this weekend that you weren't expecting? Anybody?
Kirk was a surprise. Kisner,
Oh God,
Kisner burned me big time. Whoever I go out of my way to go against on this show does well. So if there's somebody this week, the people watching need to jump on. But yeah, I was surprised by Kisner. He, I figured Hatton will have a good week. He did. Webb was on track to have a good week. Kind of faded over the weekend, but no really surprises there. Um, Wesley Bryan, I wasn't surprised by. I was big on him down at 6,500 last week. He played really well. So no huge surprises last week. Other than Kisner for me was the biggest one.
yeah, we've went out of our. Actually, you say that we rode him pretty hard the first. You know, he played in three of the first four, I think. Or yeah, we or two of the first three. We rode him pretty hard, just talking about him in our text discussion, and then and he just was just horrible. And then we basically said we're done with him until something happens. And this is not necessarily a golf course that he's gonna. You don't see him as a guy that's gonna go out and play a Donald Ross course and shoot 20 under. That's not his game.
No, and that was as I mentioned last week. That was kind of my trouble with him as of late, is he just wasn't making enough birdies. But he certainly did last week. Caught fire there.
Yep. Yep. He was the actual arrow through your heart in DraftKings.
For sure. Yeah, he was one of the many things that went wrong after about 2 o'clock Sunday.
Right. Right. Well, I'll tell you something that kind of disappointed me last week, and I will not. I will be. I'm kind of fading this week, and that's uh man, Victor Hovland just cannot putt. It's
And it's really frustrating. I wrote Hovland up. I wrote him up the last several weeks. He was a member of my Core Four on Rotoballer, the article that I do each week. It's a premium article, but Hovland was in there along with Bryson and Tyler Duncan and Wesley Bryan. But um, Hovland is super frustrating because he's playing so well, striking the ball so well. His approach numbers and tee to green numbers were great again last week, but he lost over 3 strokes putting again for the second week in a row. So it's just super frustrating. But at the same time, you feel like if the kid makes some putts one week, he's going to win. So I try to keep that in mind, even though it does get a little bit of frustration when you feel like he should be fighting for a win or a top five, and he ends up T20 or whatever. It is a little bit frustrating, but he's a super talented player, just hadn't quite put it all together yet.
right. Yeah. Let's before we, I guess, talk about this week, or before we talk about him this week, let's just go ahead and get into it. I've got. This is the first ever playing, probably unprecedented. It is unprecedented, much research that we could do in our time period. The Workday Charity Open, late. We basically, folks, we have a late canceling of a tournament, John Deere Classic, and they PGA Tour did the best job they could by basically just doing a same course field back-to-back tournaments. So we're playing this one at Muirfield Village Golf Club, which will also host a memorial tournament next week. It's a 7392 yard par 72, designed by Jack Nicklaus, that lays up in Dublin, Ohio, designed in 1974. It was hosted the memorial tournament in 1976 till present day, and it's hosted many other major events such as Ryder Cup, USM, Solheim, President's Cup. This is a pros pro golf course, no doubt. Reachable par fives, requires you to hit the ball straight. Good iron players always seem to do well on this golf course. Have you heard of anything they're going to do different over the 2 weeks? I have to imagine this week's going to play a little easier than next week. have to just on the outside looking in? What do you think, Joe?
Yeah. From what I'm hearing, I expect it to. They're saying that the rough, they're going to let it grow out a little more for next week, so it shouldn't be as penal this week. Also, imagine the pin placements be a little bit easier, and the greens are traditionally super fast. I think they're going to be run a little bit slower this week, but then I expect them to amp it up next week for the Memorial, where we'll have a little bit more of an elite field. Generally plays tougher that week. But like you said, man, it's a great golf course. And that's probably why they decided to come here back to back, because this golf course can, does have the manpower and the know-how to handle this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure things will go pretty seamless. But yeah, it's a really good test. But I do expect it to play a little bit easier this week than it will next week.
Right. And with that being said, that might play into a person that's putting stats are not going to be as good, maybe easier pin placements, slower greens. Um, but at the same time, most of your guys that hit the irons well, that don't putt well, it's going to hurt them because the pin placements are not going to be as taxing. So they're probably going to even out in that way. So back to Victor Hovland. That's why I'm having a hard time seeing, like, I have a hard time putting him in a lineup, say over um, a Justin Rose at roughly the same price point. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a really good tough decision that we'll have to make this week because those guys are really close for me. They're really close in price. Rose has got great course history here. He's looked a lot better since the layoff coming out, going back to his old equipment. But I'm also still intrigued by Hovland because, as you just mentioned a minute ago, bad putters have won here before. We have seen that. We've seen Jason Duffner win here. Hideki Matsuyama's won here. We've seen bad putters, be able to overcome that on this golf course that places so much emphasis on the approach shots, which does click towards Hovland for me. So, it's one of those things where he's hitting his irons great. He's hitting the ball great off the tee, putting himself in good position. Can he make enough putts? That's what it's going to come down to. But you still have to feel pretty good about putting a guy like that in your lineup that's going to give himself opportunities.
Right. Well, here's on down from him. Morikawa is just below him. We've kind of you've mentioned several times that you think that the last two holes and the playoff holes and over in Texas when we ramped back up just maybe took his soul with him.
I hope not, man. I really do love Morikawa, man. I hope that Berger didn't pull a tiger on him and just Molinari his soul out of his body. But he hadn't looked the same since that. He did take a week off, so maybe he's going to come back refreshed. He's not getting a lot of buzz right now. We're doing this on Tuesday night, and I'm not seeing him mentioned in articles, talked about much on podcasts. So he's kind of an interesting play to me because he is one of the best young iron players that I've seen in years come on the PGA Tour. And this course should be tailor-made for his game. He's very accurate off the tee, an amazing iron player, kind of struggles short game putting. But we've seen players overcome that here before. So yeah, I'm interested in Morikawa. I'm a little scared because I don't know where his head is, but I'm definitely interested in him.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of like always try to, especially in the gambling world, always try to like think outside the box on everything. Like this makes too much sense to go this way, so let's go the other way. And right below him, you got Ricky Fowler, and we are off on Ricky Fowler. He got married. Nothing against his character or anything, or against his hard work or his game or anything. But I mean, let's just be honest. The guy's got different things on his mind than to say he did 5 years ago. He's enjoying life, which is great. But here's the intriguing play for me. Ricky Fowler has played well on this golf course in the past, and he showed a little bit of something this weekend that maybe he's getting his game together. And I don't know why, but I'm just like if I'm looking at Hovland and Morikawa in a box, and I see Justin Rose and Ricky Fowler around the same age, I'm almost like seeming to play the latter two more. Does that make
Right.
sense? Mainly because of maybe they show up and they love this golf course. I don't know.
Well, they both have really good history here,
Mhm.
and I totally get what you're saying because experience does seem to matter on this course. I mean, we've seen some first time guys do well, but at the end of the day, Rose's recent history is fabulous. Ricky's is too, and Ricky definitely looked better than we've seen him look last week in Detroit. He gained a couple strokes on approach. His iron game looked much better. Kind of makes you wonder if he's trending in the right direction, going to a course where he's really comfortable. So yeah, man. I mean, I can definitely see going in that direction there. Maybe kind of leaning experience, those veteran guys that have been around the block a time or two, versus Holland Morikawa who haven't. It's really interesting outlook on that, and I can get behind it, man. I'm with you.
Yeah. Now here's the next problem I'm having with this tournament when I look at it on paper. Let's climb the ladder a little bit. Two guys are roughly the same amount of cost on DraftKings. We playing Patrick Cantlay or Brooks Koepka this weekend?
It's another tough one. There's so many interesting decisions to make this week. I love Cantlay. He's one of my favorite golfers out there right now. One of my favorite DFS options because he's just so consistent. Whereas Brooks is kind of all over the board. You never know where he's going to be mentally when he shows up. Seems to be doing well physically, but you never really know where his head is. Cantlay has been amazing here. He won the Memorial last year. Was one shot out of a playoff the year before that. So he loves this golf course. He's only had one start since the layoff, which kind of worries me, but his schedule's always light. So I'm willing to overlook that this week. Brooks, I would kind of think Brooks would be more of a play maybe for next weekend at the Memorial against that elite field when the course will be a little bit tougher. So between those two, I would lean Cantlay this week, personally.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that too. Next week's going to be an elite field, so that favors Brooks' mindset from history's past that we see. Plus, his brother's in the field this week, and it was not saying it's a distraction. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how he thinks, but you can tell in his interview a couple weeks ago before he pulled out of the Travelers he pulled out of.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, right before they interviewed him and asked him a lot of questions about him, and he was like, "Look, this is exciting for me. I just love, I don't know. That's just something I'm just going on my gut saying that. And I'm with you on Cantlay. Other than that, do you see any favorites or standouts at any price point you want to talk about?
Up at the top, man. I mean, we touched on all those guys. One guy that we didn't touch on that I would like to is Hideki there at 10. Um, he's a former winner here. Looked a lot sharper last week. It was only a second start since the break, so he's kind of been stop and start a little bit. He really hadn't got to get any momentum going, but he's going to be playing for the second week in a row this week. His irons were definitely firing last week, which is always a good sign for him. So I mean, I'm really interested in him at 10. JT up at the top. It's kind of like we said about Rory. Over the past few weeks, he's capable of winning any tournament. He can go out there and win this week. But the savings do matter to me this week in roster construction. So, I mean, I feel comfortable dropping down from JT to like a Cantlay or Matsuyama, Rose, those guys we talked about. Rom, I'm just not there with right now. I think the layoff hurt him. He was in really good form, and I don't think he was just recently married. I don't think he did much during the layoff game wise. So still kind of waiting on him to come around. But yeah, for me myself, I don't think I'll be going higher than Cantlay this week. But that whole area down through there is super solid.
Yeah, I agree. It like you said, obviously you're going to pick two of those top 8 guys, and they're going to have to do well. So it's going to be a little bit of a crapshoot. Like I said, this is a pros golf course, and a lot of these
Yeah,
guys.
there's not a Bryson this week. Like last week where you felt comfortable pretty much going all in on Bryson last week. I don't think there's a guy that I'm really willing to sell the farm to get in my lineup this week. like you said, I would want to probably work some combination of two guys in, like from Ricky up. But there's not a guy that I'm just all in like I felt about Bryson last week.
Right. I'm the same way. Last thing I want to hit on is I'm having problems. We have problems every week, but having some problems in the 6K because most of the guys down there that I want to play, or I feel like maybe what's the word? Ghost of Christmas Past. we got so let's just start in the sevens, like a Charles Howell III. Tough to put him in the lineup. Hoffman 6,900, Furyk 6,900, Duffner 6,800, JB Holmes 6,800. Those are guys that usually, whenever they drop in cost over the last 4 or 5 years, we're going to jam them in there because they're a lot. I mean, easily in a golf course like this, it's top 10 with the way that they hit the ball. But their putting has been so abysmal in their starts of late that it's hard to really find a shiny penny down there. Do you agree?
I do. It's tough this week. There were, which we talked about Wesley Brown a lot last week, but there were several guys that I felt comfortable going down to last week. Matthew Wolf was one of them. I think he was 68. There's just not a lot jumping out at me this week, which kind of is going to kind of force me to go a little more balanced. One guy I did notice down there at 65 is Henrik Norlander, who's not a guy a lot of people know, not a guy a lot of casual fans are going to be rostering, but he led the field last week in strokes gained approach. He gained over 8 strokes with his irons last week in Detroit. So, you know, he's one of those guys that's going to struggle putting, but anybody hitting their irons like that, you have to consider at that price, especially in, you know, a big GPP or something. Yeah. So he's a guy down there that I'm going to have a little bit of exposure to. Another guy, just totally a flyer. I mean, if you're down there shopping for a total flyer, is Brandon Wu, really good college player who's only had a few starts on the PGA Tour, made the cut in the U.S. Open last year. He's played well in some limited starts. I mean, he's a guy you can maybe take a flyer on in a big GPP or something. But there's not much more than that. I know Matthew Neesmith's played well. I think he's 6,800. He's a guy you can maybe consider. But other than that, man, I'm like you. It's not down there for me this week. I find myself trending more towards the low to mid 7K range. There's some guys in there that I really like, kind of up the top of the sevens. Joel Damon jumps out at me. He's a guy I've rostered a lot since the break. He's just been playing really solid golf from tee to green. He's gaining strokes in pretty much every area of the game right now. Doesn't have a ton of course history here, but definitely someone I'm considering. You can bump down there a little more in the sevens. We'd like to talk about Scott Stallings on this show, but he loves this golf course. I think it's one of his favorite golf courses on tour. He's had some good history here and been playing well, so I think he's definitely a guy you can look at. HV3 has been popping with his ball striking. That's a player you can consider there in the mid sevens. And maybe my favorite play down at the bottom of the sevens is you need to take that, buddy?
All right. I don't know what's going on. We got calls coming in left and right.
Maybe my favorite play down there is he's a hit or miss guy, but I kind of like where his iron play's been. That's Russell Henley.
Yeah.
He's not a guy that we're going to roster every week, and he's definitely a guy that could go out and miss the cut. But I do think at 7,300, he's a guy he can go out there and place in the top 5.
Yeah.
He gained over 8 strokes on approach in his last start, and when he gets those irons going, man, he can play. He's got a lot of upside. So that's kind of where I'm at in the lower end. Is there anybody down there sticking out to you?
No, that's I'll Chant maybe, Stallings, Connors. I'm off Horschel. I'm off Poulter on this golf course.
Horschel, you mentioned Horschel, and I was looking at him earlier today. He's not played well, since they come back from the break. But he's played well at this golf course. He's had some good finishes here, and this is a little more his style, I think, than what we've seen. I don't know that I'll have much Horschel, but he kind of interests me a little bit. Maybe this is like a tournament flyer. Since you brought him up, I thought I'd just throw that in there. That I was looking at him earlier today. He might be a guy that you could grab at low ownership. I think people will be off of him because he has missed some cuts.
Yeah, that basically sums it up for me. The top's really interesting, and having to find some shiny penny down there in the 6K where we're at, I think, this week. So this should
Yeah.
be interesting the way the 2 weeks play back to back, how that works out. And obviously the field's going to be much stronger next week. But that's all I got, bro. How you do? You good?
Yeah, man. It's just one of those weeks where I don't think you're going to fall in love with your lineup right off the bat. I think it's going to be one of those weeks. I know, at least for me personally, where I'm working through a lot of different things, trying to find what works for me. Because there are a lot of good players in this field, but with the pricing, it makes it tough. There's just not not a lot to love there below that 7K range, which kind of makes it tough. Kind of forces you to go more balanced. I mean, there's a lot of good players in the 8K range that we didn't get to hit on. You got a guy like Leishman, who's played really well here, but not been in good form. Same can be said for Kuchar. He's a course history monster here. Hadn't looked good coming out of the break. A young guy like Neiman is kind of in that Hovland Morikawa vein. A great ball striker, but you question his putting. And then you got some just really solid guys there at the bottom of the 8K range, and Woodland and Hadwin. They're guys you can consider. So there's a lot of ways you can go this week. It's hard to die on heels this week. There's everybody feels so close as far as quality wise in their price range. Like you mentioned, like Rose and Fowler versus Hovland Morikawa. I mean, that's a tough decision. You're down there, Neiman, Kuchar, Woodland, Hadwin. Tough decisions. Getting that mid 7K range. Varner, Damon, McNeely, Stallings, guys like that. Tough. So, I think it might be a good week to start with a good core, start building out lineups. Maybe make a few more lineups than you do because these guys are so close.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of trying to just shoot a single bullet in there this week.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I can't wait we got to watch more golf this weekend than normal or than I have in the past. So I'm excited about watching some of this too. So
yeah, it's a great golf course. We should have a couple of really, really good weeks of golf coming up just because it is such a great course.
Yeah. Yep. Well, until next week, my friend.
Yeah, man. Good talking to you. We'll do it again. We'll dive in a little deeper next week, the Memorial.
Yep.
Huge elite field coming up. Hopefully we can get something going this week like we had the last couple weeks. You got to hit me with a good call, man. Who's your call? You nailed Kirk last week. I need a name. I'm searching this week.
Hey, look here. Let me give you a name. Mark it down. Heard Steven say Emiliano Grillo.
Grillo. I like it. He's a ball striker.
Him, Brandon Steele. I love both of those guys down there. So
can't put it in the ocean. Cannot put it in the ocean, but he is a ball striker, man.
I really like Steele's ability to get on these par fives. He hits it so far. I mean, I'm in on Steele.
Okay, we're putting that. We're filing Grillo and Steele in the Chris Kirk, Phil Mickelson streak you've got going. So
right.
we're going to put them in there.
Yep. So other than that, I ain't got much.
Yeah, man, it's a tough week. I mean, we could sit here and talk about guys, but like I said, I think you're just going to end up with tough decisions this week. I would lean ball striking, lean approach play, iron play, off the tee play. It's going to be important for them to be able to scramble, but at the end of the day, I think we've said on here before, if they're scrambling, they're probably not making birdies, right? So
That's right.
we want guys that are hitting fairways and hitting greens this week.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, ball striking is the key, especially this week. If they can't putt, don't let it scare you away.
Yeah. I think that's fair. That's fair to say.
All right, buddy, man. Have a good weekend. Have fun. That Maples 8:40 Sunday game. Hopefully.
Yeah, we're gonna hope we get it going again this week. We didn't get to do it last weekend because we played on the 4th and that scramble. So hopefully we'll get the Maples 8:40 group going again this Sunday.
We need an update next week. See how it went.
For sure. My game's struggling right now, man. My game's struggling right now. I might have to get with you for a lesson.
All right, come on with it. I'll help you out.
All right, brother. Good talking to you.
You too. See you. Bye.
All right, see you.
Can't keep talking about complication. Takes 2 hearts to maintain these relations. So hold fast to see it through. I'll do my best at getting back to you. My soul beat down, my body's through. Oh God, I just need you. Straighten me out. If I start to bow, you're taking me down. When you let me go, I'm just asking you how. Could you have ever known when you're taking me out? You cut right to the bone, yeah. Erroneous sex, how diabolical brainchild. Listen when I say the situation might get wild. Run, but you can't hide fun and you won't find ways to make no sense of this. Don't call it a free ride. Bump pride, I'm about to let my demons out. You know my soul exploding when you hear me shout. And have no doubt, it's heart and soul that love's about. And within that love, that peace is truly found. That peace that reaps so sounds of urgency, emergency. My God, this shit's profound. My love, don't let me down. I'll have to show you me, and as you judge, we'll straighten me out. If I start to bow, you're taking me down. When you let me go, I'm just asking you how. Could you have ever known when you're taking me out? You cut right to the bone and straighten me out. If I start to bow, you're taking me down. Straighten me out.
Heart and soul, the love's abound. Heart and soul, the love's abound. Have no doubt. Heart and soul, the love's abound. Heart and soul, the love's abound.
Straighten me out.
Heart and soul, the love's abound. Heart and soul, the love's abound. Yeah. Heart and soul, the love's abound. Heart and soul, the love's abound.
Straighten me out. If I start to bow, you're taking me down. When you let me go, I'm just asking you how.
Yeah.
Could you have ever known when you're taking me out? You cut right to the bone, yeah.